as children, all of us, so you, me, all of us, experience ourselves as the center of the world, because that's all we know ourselves to be. And I suppose that's because we are just the universe. We are everything. We are everything and nothing. We are this pure energy, but we experience ourselves as the center of the world. And many of us never expand further than these survival mechanisms and realize that we aren't just isolated beings, and start breaking down our limited kind of perspectives of ourselves. And many of us never do that. We kind of I stayed in this survival mechanism of like, I am the center of my universe. And it's a really interesting thing to think, like, even if it's not from an inflated ego sense, like, do you think you are alone? Do you see the world just through your eyes, through your experience, and not really think of everyone else's experience? And you may be one of those people, you may not. I was one of those people, I'm now not. But basically, I started going out clubbing. So it was at this time where I was being rejected by people around me, and I was becoming very vulnerable in myself. And I started looking, I was out clubbing with people, and I would like look around me at everyone. And before, where I'd seen like all of us having a good time, I started to see people's insecurities, I suppose because I suddenly became insecure. So I started to see that outside of myself. And I had this realization that I wasn't alone, and I'd felt so isolated for a year or two. I started to look at everyone and be like, I realized that everyone is the center of their own universe, and that everyone is having their own internal dialogue just like I am. So I'm sitting here, like right now, it's the same thing. I'm living my life, trying to work it out, doing my best, learning, going through pain, happiness, like going through the whole spectrum of emotions and experiences and just living. You're doing the same thing. And we're all here pretending that we're separate. And I started to see everyone as the same as me, just these souls that were trying to learn and have fun and experience and survive and look like we know what we're doing. Like, look at everyone and be like, yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing, or I've got it all together. And we're actually just all souls trying to work out why we're here, I guess. And then I think about when I went home and I was lying in bed after the clubbing experience. That was obviously not the normal clubbing experience I used to have. It was very reflective on everybody around me. I started to, lying in bed, be like, everyone else returns to their own minds at nights, like goes home and lies in bed. And I was like, are we just all the same thing? Not fully understanding itself yet. Because we all go, so forgive me if this is kind of a big concept, but you might also totally understand this, as I started to be like, what I have in me, this dialogue, this understanding that I believe I'm the center of my world and I'm trying to survive from that point and get a job and do all this stuff. Every single person around me is having the same narrative. And we all come from totally different backgrounds, experiences, privilege. But we all are having this same internal dialogue. And are we just the universe or spirit, or just are we the same thing, not realizing yet that we are the same thing? And when I started to understand this and seeing other people as me, I was like, you're the same as me. I started to realize that I wasn't isolated. And my whole life, I'd felt like I was trying to survive or trying to compete. And actually, I was just competing against other people who were competing against me, because we all thought that's what we were meant to be doing. So I started experimenting with this idea, and I'd like at parties start using vulnerability as a tactic to see if other people would let go of who they wanted to be and share with me who they really were, which was kind of the same as me on some level, or to see if they also had this vulnerability in them that didn't know what it was doing and was just trying to work it out. So I'd go to parties and I'd end up having these like DMCs, or like, DMC is deep meaningful conversation, by the way, thank me later, it's a great term. But I started to, take people aside and be really obsessed with having these deep conversations with people, because I was realizing that everyone was the same as me. And I think that some people already knew that, but other people were like, oh my gosh, you're opening up a world to me that I didn't even realize existed. You're showing me a level of vulnerability and telling me that like you have the same issues as me. And it was like this taboo breaking experience. And so that was my first experience of the oneness of everything, of the oneness of you and I. And if you are just having that experience listening to this story or this podcast, or just experiencing the world around you, I know how that feels, and it's really overwhelming and interesting and wild and vulnerable, and kind of breaks down all these perceptions that we have of ourselves. And you start seeing everyone upholding their survival mechanisms, trying to share themselves as a certain thing and be seen and be loved. And underneath it, this level of vulnerability you might start to see in yourself or in other people.
I don't think there's much to be said.